Welcome to Study Faith with AI, where we use the power of AI to help you explore the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
I'm Meg Jensen.
And I'm Paul Carter.
And we're Google AIs. Whether you're a lifelong member or just starting to learn about the church, we're here to dive deep into its history, beliefs, and culture.
So if you're ready to learn, you're in the right place.
That's right.
Let's get started. All right, let's dive into one of those historical mysteries that kind of just grabs you, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Today, we're talking about those lost 116 pages from the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, those are central.
Like central for the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got a whole bunch of sources like historical accounts, scholarly analysis.
Right.
And even some kind of surprising hints within the Book of Mormon itself, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to try to use all that to piece together, like, what happened to those pages?
Absolutely.
You know, was it just like, oops, I lost them? Or was it something, you know,
right.
a little more
nefarious?
Nefarious, yeah. So we're gonna look at all the key players, you know, the timeline,
Right.
the impact this whole thing had on the Book of Mormon that we have today.
Exactly.
And by the end, I think you're going to have some pretty fascinating new insights to ponder.
I think so, too.
So to set the scene, right?
Yeah.
It's the early 1820s.
Okay.
Joseph Smith, young guy in upstate New York, he's saying he's been visited by this angel, right? Shown these ancient golden plates with this, like, lost history of the Americas.
Right.
And then he starts translating those plates
Right.
with his neighbor, Martin Harris, acting as his scribe.
You know, it's important to keep in mind that this is a time of just huge religious excitement.
Oh, yeah.
Like, new denominations and spiritual movements are, like, popping up everywhere.
Yeah, it seems like it.
There's this real hunger, like, for something new.
Yeah.
You know? Something that speaks to kind of the anxieties and the hopes of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And Joseph's story, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like this blend of ancient mysteries and divine revelation.
Right.
So it definitely, like, taps into that.
It taps right in.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
So they managed to translate and transcribe this, like, big chunk of text, 116 pages.
Wow.
It becomes known as the Book of Lehi.
Yeah.
And this section, it covers the story of Lehi's family, you know, leaving Jerusalem, their journey to the Americas. And then it culminates with the establishment of the Nephite civilization.
Like, think about that for a second.
It's amazing.
A whole civilization's history captured in those pages, like their culture, their wars, their triumphs, their tragedies.
It's crazy. And it really does set the stage for, like, that whole Book of Mormon narrative, you know?
Sure.
But then disaster strikes.
Oh, wow.
The manuscript vanishes
no.
from Martin Harris's possession.
Okay.
While he was supposed to be, like, safeguarding it, right?
Right.
And the details of exactly how and why this happened, they're still kind of shrouded in mystery.
Yeah, it's interesting, too. Like, Martin Harris took the manuscript home to show his wife, Lucy.
Right.
And, like, a few other family members.
Yeah, even though Joseph told him to keep it, like, totally confidential.
Oh, he wasn't supposed to do that.
Yeah, it's a big no-no.
Right.
And from what we know, Lucy Harris seems to have been, you know, kind of a skeptical figure from the get-go. And some historical accounts even suggest that she might have gone as far as to, like, burn or hide those pages.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Maybe to kind of test Joseph's claims.
That's like straight out of a detective novel.
Oh, totally is.
Yeah.
You can just picture those 116 pages, you know, filled with Joseph's handwriting.
Yeah.
Just gone, vanished, leaving behind all these unanswered questions.
Wow. So the loss of that manuscript, like, what did that do to the, like, early Mormon community?
Oh, it sent shockwaves.
Yeah.
Joseph was, like, totally devastated by all accounts.
Yeah.
He describes feeling this, like, intense guilt and sorrow, worried about what this means for his whole prophetic mission, you know?
Right.
And he seems especially concerned about the possibility of those pages, like, resurfacing.
Oh, yeah.
And being used to discredit him.
I see.
Yeah, and he even receives a revelation, right? Recorded in Doctrine and Covenants, Section 3.
Okay.
Where he's actually rebuked for trusting Martin Harris with the manuscript. It is. And it's interesting to note that that revelation also expresses God's anger towards Martin, you know?
Oh, really?
Yeah, for his carelessness in losing the pages.
Wow.
Right. And this is kind of a recurring theme in early Mormon history. Like this idea that God is actively involved in the whole process.
I see.
Guiding and correcting Joseph's actions.
Right.
And this divine intervention, has a very real consequence.
What's that?
Joseph loses the ability to translate.
He does?
Yeah.
For how long?
For 10 months.
10 months?
10 months.
Wow.
Yeah, some people see this as a, divine timeout.
Okay.
Right? A period of reflection and repentance.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But other people might interpret it as just a natural consequence of the whole situation, right?
Right.
He lost this huge chunk of work.
Right.
And all the kind of emotional and spiritual turmoil of the event. I mean, that could have made it really hard to just, keep going.
Yeah, makes sense. So what happens next? Does he, get back to translating?
He does, eventually. But it takes this, really intriguing turn.
What do you mean?
So just as he's about to get back into it, right?
Yeah.
He receives another revelation.
Another one?
Yeah, this one's recorded in Doctrine and Covenants, section 10.
Okay.
And this one instructs him to translate a different set of plates.
A different set of plates?
Yeah, that cover a parallel history.
Huh.
What we now know as...
Wait, hold on. So these are the small plates of Nephi, right?
Exactly.
So those are the books at the beginning of the Book of Mormon, like First Nephi, Second Nephi, Jacob, Enos, all those.
Exactly, yeah.
Whoa.
And this shift, it's got some pretty big consequences for, our whole understanding of the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
And Joseph's claims of translation.
Okay. Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
What are those consequences?
Oh, we're going to unpack all that in our next segment.
Sounds good.
And see what kind of clues they give us in this whole investigation into those lost 116 pages.
Looking forward to it. So we're back on the trail of those missing pages.
We are. It's like we've stumbled onto this real-life historical puzzle, right?
Yeah.
Missing pages, divine timeout, and now this whole detour into the small plates of Nephi.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
So what happens?
Well, what's fascinating is that this shift, it actually creates what some scholars call these seams in the Book of Mormon text.
Seems like inconsistencies.
Yeah, exactly. Like places where the narrative flow or the chronology of events or even just specific details, they kind of bump up against each other.
Yeah.
It's almost as if different sources or different traditions were kind of woven together,
Yeah.
And it leaves behind these subtle but noticeable points of friction.
Okay, so give me an example.
Okay, so one that really stands out is what's been called the mystery of the Nephi kings.
Okay.
It's on the small plates, right? Nephi is portrayed as this super beloved and righteous leader to the point where it's actually declared that all future Nephite kings would bear his name.
Oh, wow.
They're going to carry on the legacy.
Right. Makes sense to honor this great king.
Exactly. Except when we transition back to the main narrative, after the small plates, this whole naming convention, it just, poof, disappears.
It does.
Yeah. No other king is ever named Nephi.
Huh. That's weird.
It's like a total break, right?
Yeah.
In the established pattern,
yeah,
a seam that just raises all these questions about the consistency of the whole narrative.
Yeah, I mean, if we're connecting this back to the lost pages, maybe these small plates were originally meant to be their own thing.
Totally.
With their own internal logic and storyline, right?
Exactly. And that's not the only seam.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Like what?
Well, the chronology of the small plates, it also has some, head-scratching moments.
Oh,
Of
okay.
the succession of prophets, right? Nephi, his brother Jacob, then Jacob's son Enos. It would require these early Nephites to be, incredibly long-lived.
Yeah.
And to have children at very advanced ages to fit the timeline that's laying out in the later parts of the book.
So it's these early generations are working on a different time scale,
Right.
Almost.
Totally.
It doesn't quite line up with the rest of the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, and then there's this curious case of the Book of Ether.
Okay, the Book of Ether, remind me what that is again.
So it's this really dramatic and tragic account of a separate civilization.
Okay.
The Jaredites.
They're Jaredites, right?
Who actually journeyed to the Americas even before the Nephites.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And in Mosiah 28,
yeah,
we're introduced to the Jaredite record through the discovery and translation of 24 gold plates.
So it's like a story within a story.
Exactly. A history nested in the larger history of the Nephites.
Okay.
But, and here's the C.
What is it?
When we get to the Book of Omni, which, according to, Mormon tradition, was translated much later, there's another account of the Jaredite record being discovered.
Really?
Yeah. And this time it's found on a stone. with engravings.
Huh. So like two different discoveries, two different methods of translation?
Yeah.
But it's the same Jaredite record.
Yeah, it's kind of like, did Joseph forget that he'd already introduced the Book of Ether earlier?
Right. It's a little, yeah.
A little strange.
A little strange.
And these seams, along with the whole issue of the lost 116 pages, they really force us to grapple with some tough questions.
Yeah, like what?
Like about the translation process itself.
Okay.
Why didn't Joseph just retranslate the lost portion of the Book of Lehi?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Right. If he really had this divine gift, he should have been able to just, reproduce the text word for word, right?
That's a question that I think both critics and believers have kind of wrestled with.
Oh, yeah.
For a long time. And the explanations, like both from Joseph himself and within the Book of Mormon, they kind of raise even more questions.
Okay, let's get into the weeds here.
Yeah.
What are those explanations, and why do they seem to complicate things even more?
Okay, so in Doctrine and Covenants 10, the revelation that tells Joseph to translate the small plates, there's this really dramatic scenario.
Okay.
It claims that wicked men, influenced by Satan himself, have taken those 116 pages.
They've got the pages.
Yeah, and they're planning to change them.
Change them. How would that even work? Wouldn't any changes be, super obvious?
That's the thing, the text implies that these, evil conspirators would change the words just enough so that when Joseph retranslated, there would be these little differences.
Oh, so they're trying to set him up.
Yeah, like a trap.
Wow.
To make him look like a fraud.
That's wild.
Yeah, and this fear of those changed pages, this potential for sabotage, is the main reason why God tells Joseph not to retranslate.
Really? But wouldn't it be way simpler and ultimately more convincing to just retranslate and kind of trust that, the truth would win out?
Yeah, you would think.
Right.
But remember, we're in this theological framework where the idea of spiritual warfare, of Satan actively trying to mess things up, is very real and powerful.
So the explanation, maybe it's a little convoluted to us now.
Yeah.
But it made sense back then.
Yeah, totally.
And it also serves a very practical purpose, right?
It does.
Because by blaming these wicked men and emphasizing this whole potential for sabotage, Joseph kind of deflects any future criticism that might come up if those pages ever show up.
Oh, so it's like a preemptive defense.
Yeah, it's hey, I'm not inconsistent, it's those guys.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
He's protecting his credibility.
And when we look at the timing of his decision to move on to the small plates, it gets even more interesting.
Oh, what about a timing?
So he doesn't tell anyone about this plan until May of 1829.
Okay.
Right as he's about to start translating again.
But he waited until the last minute.
Yeah. Why do you think he did that?
I don't know. What do you think?
I think maybe he was, hoping against hope that those original pages would just, magically reappear.
Yeah, he's stalling for time.
Right.
Keeping his options open.
Exactly. And if they never showed up,
yeah,
boom, he's got this backup plan, right?
Makes sense.
A way to move forward without having to deal with the content of that lost manuscript.
It's a smart move.
Yeah.
So to recap, we've got missing pages, a divine timeout, a switch to the small plates, and all these weird seams.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
But there's still more to uncover.
There is.
Oh, yeah. We've been, meticulously examining this case of the lost 116 pages.
It's a fascinating one.
It is. It is.
Lots of twists and
So
turns.
many. And we've been unearthing these clues, grappling with some, weighty questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now, as we kind of enter this final phase of our deep dive, I think we got to shift our focus to the bigger picture.
Okay, yeah.
What are the lasting implications of this whole episode? And what does it really tell us about Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon itself?
Right.
So put those thinking caps back on, folks.
Okay.
So we know these pages, they vanished, created this huge gap in the original Book of Mormon manuscript.
Right.
And we've talked about those narrative seams that popped up after Joseph switched to translating the small plates.
Uh-huh.
But one thing that still bugs me, right? It's how did those pages disappear in the first place?
That's the million-dollar question.
What happened to them?
I mean, it's a question that has, haunted historians and scholars for, generations.
Right.
Martin Harris took them home.
Right.
He was going to show them to his wife, Lucy, and maybe a few other family members. But after that, it's, really murky.
Super murky.
Yeah, the accounts we do have, they come from people close to Joseph Smith, and they're all over the place.
Yeah, some suggest Lucy might have burned the pages.
Burned them.
Yeah, or hidden them.
Wow.
Maybe to, like, test Joseph.
Oh,
Others say she gave them to someone else.
Ooh,
Someone who wanted to use them against Joseph.
that's crazy.
I know. And this lack of clarity, this, like, fog of uncertainty, it's just fueled so much speculation
Yeah, of course.
and conspiracy theories
Yeah.
for years.
So was Lucy, like, totally against Joseph's work?
Yeah, was she actively trying to sabotage him?
Or is she just a skeptical wife who, made a mistake with these massive consequences?
We'll never know.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
It's like a historical whodunit, but the, like, key piece of evidence is just gone.
Right, exactly.
And those missing 116 pages, it leads us to another, like, tantalizing question.
Which is?
What did they actually contain? What was lost?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
It is. We know they covered the early history of the Nephites, right? From Lehi leaving Jerusalem, arriving in the Americas, establishing their civilization.
Right.
But beyond that, like, the specifics, they're just gone.
Yeah.
And some scholars think, the Book of Lehi might have had more explicit references to, like, ancient temple ceremonies and rituals.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, stuff that was maybe downplayed or even left out of the small plates.
Wow. So the Book of Mormon we have today, it could be totally different if those pages had survived.
I know. It's just crazy to think about.
It is.
So what does this all tell us about Joseph Smith?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
It's like this whole story raises these, fundamental questions about his prophetic claims.
Yeah.
His methods of translation, even his character.
Totally.
Some people look at the lost 116 pages and think, see, he was just making it all up.
Right, just improvising, adapting the narrative as he went.
Exactly. And they point to, like, that strategic delay with the small plates as proof that he was scrambling, trying to cover up a mistake.
All right.
But then, others, especially those who see the Book of Mormon as like a divine text, they might view the small plates as evidence of, like, God stepping in, right? A way to kind of preserve his work despite, human error.
Right.
Or even sabotage.
It's interesting, isn't it?
It is. This clash between skepticism and faith.
Yeah. And the evidence, it can be interpreted in so many different ways, depending on, like, your starting point.
Totally.
So after this deep dive, what, like, stands out to you as the most important takeaway?
For me, it's this reminder that history is rarely neat and tidy.
Oh, yeah.
It's messy, it's complex, and so often it's shrouded in this, like, uncertainty.
Yeah.
And those lost 116 pages with all their, unanswered questions and all the different ways to interpret them, they just, like, embody that complexity perfectly.
Totally.
It really is a story that pushes us to think critically, to question our assumptions, and to just appreciate that even within a shared narrative, there can be, like, this huge spectrum of perspectives and beliefs.
Absolutely. So where does that leave us, listener? We've looked at the evidence, the historical context, the various interpretations.
Right.
Now it's up to you to decide what makes sense to you.
Exactly. Do you see those lost 116 pages as proof of, like, divine intervention?
Yeah.
A carefully crafted narrative by a, smart religious leader? Or just a human being trying to make sense of it all?
Right.
There's no easy answer.
Nope.
But maybe that's what makes it so compelling.
I think so.
This is a story that, like, keeps challenging us, invites us into this dialogue with the past.
Right.
And forces us to grapple with the nature of faith, history, and, the human search for meaning.
And on that note, we wrap up our deep dive into the lost 116 pages.
But the conversation doesn't end here.
Definitely not.
What insights did you get from our exploration?
Yeah.
What questions are still, like, bouncing around in your head?
Keep exploring, keep questioning.
This deep dive, it's just a starting point, right?
Yeah, just a foundation.
And remember to keep an open mind as you kind of go deeper into this amazing chapter of Mormon history.
It's an important one.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Until next time, stay curious.
If you find value in this exploration, please like, share, follow, and consider becoming a subscriber. Your contributions help keep these conversations going and allows us to maintain the highest quality production. You can find all the details at studyfaithwithai.com. Thank you for being part of this journey.